Hello, everyone. I am back with chapter 28 of System Synthesis, titled It's a New Start. Acceptance isn't a ground moving act, even though for Isuku, accepting that he needed help felt exactly like that. Nothing much changed. Not immediately, at least. No one in his family treated him differently. He was grateful for that. He wasn't weak. He wasn't. His morning started the same, albeit the invisible weight on his chest was lifted, or maybe it wasn't lifted, but the weight was being shared. The nuances didn't matter. What mattered was that Asuku didn't wake up chasing after his breath and sanity. There was no ache in his throat. He woke up peacefully, blinking away the rays of early morning sun. Acceptance may not be an earth-shattering act, but it still made a difference. Morning, a gentle voice spoke, and Asuku squinted his eyes open as he sat up. Ends rested, floated mid-air by his feet, a small smile on his face, eyes curved in the crescent. Morning, En, Isuku greeted, rolling off the bed. He didn't notice the way his steps didn't feel as heavy as they did for the last day. The chains of fear and dread were no longer bound to him. He trudged to the bathroom to splash some water on his face before heading downstairs. Downstairs, he found his dad leaning over the counter, half asleep and glaring at the coffee machine like it would make the machine work faster. Itsuku snickered lightly at the sight, an unnoticed tension uncoiling itself from around his chest. The bandages present on his dad's face were no longer present. Itsuku wondered when he had removed them before deciding it didn't matter as long as the wounds were healing. Hearing his snicker, his dad lifted his head up. Dark, tired eyes fell on him before his lip lit up in a ghost of a smile. Having fun at my misery? He asked, voice deeper and heavier than usual from sleep. Oh, very, Isuku cheekily replied as he walked over to the kitchen counter and hopped on one of the bar stools. Can I have a cup too? His dad stared at him before humming thoughtfully and then murmuring, maybe when you grow a little later. Isuku scrunched his nose, letting out an offended huff. Sure, he was short, but not that much. You're the smallest in your class, bud, Yurichi unhelpfully pointed out as he popped in sight. Itsuku threw a glare at him before turning to his dad and pouting. You know the whole coffee stunt height thing is a myth, right? There's no scientific proof. I know, Shota replied, perking up a little when the machine beeped and picked up his mug full of steaming hot coffee. I just need an excuse to keep you from caffeine addiction until you're a little older. I don't have any addictions, Itsuku mumbled, ignoring Yurichi's quiet shit. I forgot how deep his voice gets in the morning. Comment about his dad. Shota raised an eyebrow as he took a sip from his cup and looked at his shirt. Itsuku followed his line of sight and felt his cheeks heat up as he realized he had gone to sleep wearing an oversized Put Your Hands Up radio shirt and black joggers in the colors that represented the Eraserhead. His feet were covered by fluffy Miracle socks. Listen, the chibi Miracle etched onto it was adorable. This doesn't count, Isuku pouted, looking away from his dad, who was undoubtedly was smirking at him. Besides him, Yurichi let out a hearty snicker and commented something about him being an advertisement model for merch. Whatever you say, bud, Shota said, amusement swimming in his voice. He walked out of the kitchen, ruffling Itsuku's hair in the process. Itsuku huffed and looked away. You know you can just move his hand away, right? Shut up, Yurichi. Then once Shota had disappeared somewhere in the living room, Itsuku hopped off the chair and went to make himself toast. He was in the middle of buttering his perfectly brown toast when the door to his mother's room slammed open. Oh my god, I'm so sorry I slept in, Inko said, rushing out of the room. It's fine, Shota said. I already started the breakfast. You're an angel, Inko gasped, tying her hair in a loose bun. Itsuki snickered once more when he heard his dad let out an annoyed noise at being called an angel. Itsuki watched quietly as the day in their house slowly started. The clatter of utensils as his mother prepared herself a cup of tea faded out to a pleasant background. A few moments later, Hawks, who had once again spent the night at their house, came stumbling down the stairs, feathers all unruly and fluffed up behind him. A few fell astray, much to Shota's irritant as he picked them up. Itsuki realized he had spaced out when a warmer than usual hand pressed against his back, grounding him. He instinctively leaned into the familiar touch, sighing softly. "You okay?" Dabi asked quietly. Itsuki hummed, just not fully awake. Dabi pretended to look around before sneaking a cup of steaming hot coffee towards him with a wink. "Don't worry, I gotcha." Itsuki found himself grinning widely as he took the cup from his hand. Murmuring a quiet "thank you," he sipped the hot beverage, sighing in relief as the warm liquid slid down his throat. Perhaps it was nothing more than the placebo effect, but he did feel his body wake up a little from the sip. Dabi sat down next to him, putting 2 pieces of bread in the toaster before selecting his preferred kind of toast and starting the machine. Itsuki scrunched up his nose as Dabi selected the highest setting. "Come here," he mumbled as he stretched out his hand to reach for the cream cheese box present on the other side of the counter. A second later, a red feather flew in, picking up the box and dropping it in front of him. "Thanks, hon," Dabi muttered distractedly, opening the lid of the box a quiet cheer under his breath. Itsuki froze, eyes widening as he snapped his head towards Dabi, besides him, and gasped quietly, for Yurichi let out a little pain noise. Then, grabbing his bicep a little harder than he was going for, he pulled the black-haired man towards himself and whispered, "When?" Dabi frowned and whispered back, "When what? When did you ask him out?" Itsuki whispered like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Dabi stilled in his grip. "Oh." His shoulders slumped as he pouted, "I, haven't yet?" Itsuki's expression dropped to an unimpressed stare. Then, with a click of his tongue, he pushed away the older boy. "Had me all excited for nothing. Tell me, if he doesn't hurry, someone else might snatch up the birdie," Yurichi said. Itsuki didn't have to look to know he was pouting. "Speaking of excitement," Dabi murmured, spreading the cream cheese on his toast, "when's the sports festival?" Like a balloon being popped, newfound excitement flooded Suku at the mention of the festival. The renowned sports festival of UA, the one that everyone, students and civilians alike, waited for with bated breath at the start of each academic year, an event that was basically the turning point in the career of many up-and-coming heroes in training. The event that pretty much every established heroes had their eyes on in order to look for new sidekicks and interns. "Wait, everyone has their eye on it." Saburo popped out and sat down on the bar stool to his left. Itsuki frowned for a second, wondering why Saburo had pointed out that specific part when he realized it. "Shit." Shota grunted as he stretched forward. His muscles stretched to their limit, and the pain from it was almost relaxing. The timer beeped, and Shota let out a sigh, relaxing his posture. His eyes glanced over to his watch as he changed position and started the next warm-up exercise. He had 45 minutes at most, and he needed to make the most of it, although that was easier said than done. Why did I give up on this? Shota wondered. The familiar feeling of guilt and bitterness pulled in his stomach. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth as he tried to shake off his thoughts. He didn't have time for self-pity and hatred. Emotions like that gnawed away at his heart, steeping time like water. The very limited time he had would be over before he could notice. Shota couldn't let that happen. This wasn't his second year at high school. He didn't have hours to spare and focus entirely on his training. I was so stupid to give this up, Shota thought, despite his struggles to keep his darker thoughts away from his mind. The timer beeped distracting him for a few seconds as he moved on to the next rep. He couldn't wait to actually start the training. He knew the current program set for him was a dulled, diluted version of what the original heist program consisted of, but he also knew that even in its diluted state, the program wouldn't give him any second to let his thoughts wander. Sheta was fully aware that his current mindset was toxic, but it was way better than what his headspace would be if he let his thoughts wander. It was about choosing the lesser evil. Sheta sighed as he shifted positions once more, checking his posture in the wall mirror opposite to him before he started the next set. Daily meetings with his old therapist were included in the program for the exact reason. Ugh, I'm rusty, Sheta commented mentally as he heard his joints pop and he heard his spine twist. So much rust to get rid of. Heist, Hero Eraserhead Intensive Special Training, a program Nezu had introduced to him right after he had received his letter telling him about his utter failure during the entrance exam. Although during that time it was a nameless training program, back then Shota had been nothing more than a shorter than pure, scrawny kid fighting through life out of sheer spite. But Nezu had seen something in him. Well, he ran through the course, pulling people away from falling debris and exploding robots. The entrance exam, in his professional opinion, was utter bullshit. It had very less to do with heroism and more to shortlist kids with strong quirks. Shota had no idea how mad destruction of robots was ever supposed to bring out hero qualities in the examinees. I can help you become the kind of hero you want to be, Nezu had said, beady eyes shining as he stared right into his soul. Do you think you can become the kind of hero you want to be? What's the catch? Shota had asked in return. He had only been given a glance at the program, but it had given him enough information to get an idea of what the final picture would look like. You just need to pass my entrance test, Nezu answered, grin sharp and savage. And what's that? Shota had asked, nursing the bruise on his wrist he had gotten earlier that day from his bullies. You're currently being admitted into UA's Gen Ed course, Nezu had said instead, like Shota needed a reminder of his failure, the shame that burned under his skin. My entrance test requires you to win the sports festival. Shota had scoffed and rolled his eyes. Well, that's real neat. Winning the sports festival was my plan anyway. It does make everything easier, doesn't it? Nezu had replied, ears twitching. Shota had gotten the vague idea that he was stepping into a trap without realizing. Or maybe he did realize it. He was desperate enough to ignore all the warning signs. In that case, the Chimera rat hopped off the chair, running his paws over his pants to ease away the creases. I hope to see you again, Aizawa-san. Shota had no idea what the hell he signed up for that day. At first, the training regimen for heist hadn't seemed that hard. Sure, Shota would end up on the verge of passing out after every session, but that was understandable. That was until the day Nezu had given him the pleasant read, hellish shocker that the hell he had been working through for the 2 weeks was nothing more than the orientation program. When Nezu had said that he would turn Eraserhead into a competent, efficient, and completely independent underground hero, he had meant it. Every word, every promise. It was also then that Shota started reading Nezu as a name synonym to terror. The heist training program, in its true glory, was pure hell. Almost inhumane. Shota had thought Nezu had to be a complete psychopath to create something like that. But then again, Shota was equally psychotic because he enjoyed it. The previous nameless program, Heist, was meant to raise a hero fully capable of not only being the best in their field, but also capable of standing up against HPSC in case the corruption went too far. Someone who could stand against the top heroes, all puppets of the HPSC. It was meant to create someone that was a hero and more. And it was all going fine. Shota had been improving drastically. Even if he had barely covered a little over 40% of the entire program. But then that incident had happened. It was like the ground below him had cracked open, sweeping him down into an endless pit. Height, which had been his wings, turned into his noose. In his unstable mindset, the training was dangerous, and Nezu had threatened to shut it down. Shota hadn't even tried resisting, and after all that, he had pretty much given up on everything, working out of his sense of guilt, trying to make up for his mistake. Being a hero was no longer about him living his dream, but a penance of sorts, and maybe he would have given up on it as well. But then he met Asuku. He got a new family. He became a teacher. Lives of several budding heroes were in his hands, and he couldn't give up. He was a Eraserhead, yes, but a broken shell of it. The true Eraserhead. The 15-year-old Eraserhead that was ready to fight the world if he was so needed, was locked up in the old heist gym, and he supposed it was time to let him out once more. He had been tame for far too long. There was a buzz of excitement in school as Asuku walked in. He could overhear them talking about the up-and-coming sports festival, wondering how this year's festival would turn out. Who would win? Some of the seniors were even placing bets among themselves for the possible winners amongst the second and third years. His class didn't seem any better because when he walked in, pretty much the entire class, sans Todoroki, Yayuozu, and Katsuki, were gathered on one side around Ida's desk, talking about the sports festival, trying to figure out what they would have to do this year. Even Shinso was wandering around the outline of the group, listening even if he wasn't saying anything. Given the way that Kaminari was loosely clutching onto his wrist, it didn't seem like he had a choice to leave. Although the moment one of them, Asuri noticed first him walking in, they all turned their attention towards him, including the three others who weren't paying attention previously. Midoriya-kun! Uraka chipped, skipping her way over to him. Uh-oh, Itsuku thought. He had completely forgotten about how his class would react to the incident yesterday. They would have questions. Questions Itsuku didn't have answers to, or wasn't comfortable answering. How was he supposed to say, "Oh, nothing much, just years of traumatic emotions getting dumped on me at once"? Well, he could just say that, but he wasn't comfortable around his classmates enough to use the kind of dark humor and sarcasm. Katsuki, yep, his family and his mom, because she would fret. Definitely. His classmates and possible friends? Maybe not yet. Although before his classmates and newly made friends could crowd him and shower him with questions, the door behind him opened once more. Even if Isuku couldn't feel the newcomer's presence from the way all the students in front of him, he knew it was his dad. It was kind of funny seeing their terrified expressions. "What's going on?" his dad asked gruffly. Sensei, we wanted to ask Midoriya-kun about yesterday. Uraraka, the ever-brave soul, answered. Itsuku looked over his shoulder to find his dad looking at him, silently asking, "Do you want to tell them anything?" He almost had to do a double take when he noticed his dad's clothes. I don't really want to talk about it," Itsuku said hesitantly, his mind still trying to figure out the reason behind the sudden change. Just from their expression, he could tell they were not satisfied with his answer. Had his dad not been present, they would have definitely pestered for more answers. But Ashito started, but was cut off by Uraka. "Well then, are you okay now?" Is everything fine? Itsuki managed to smile a little and nodded. Yeah, I'm better now. Uraka smiled. I'm glad to know. Alright, now everyone back to your seat. Shota grumbled, glaring at his students to make sure everyone followed his words without a tweak. Immediately, all the students standing scrambled for their seat. Itsuki waited for a second before slowly walking over to his seat and sitting down. Then, Shota walked to the podium, depositing the stack of papers on his desk. Sensei, Ashido spoke up, raising her hand. Yes, Shota answered. If you don't mind me asking. Shota was tempted to say, I do mind, but he was a teacher and an adult, so he didn't. Why aren't you wearing your hero costume today? Itsuki meant to ask as well, but telepathically, since he lacked the social courage required to ask it out loud like Ashiro. Instead of the usual black jumpsuit made from a special material that kept his body insulated during the night and was cut resistant, his dad was wearing dark blue Henley with black joggers tucked into his specialized combat boots, and his hair was tied back in a half bun. I thought he didn't like to tie up his hair because using his quirk while his hair is tied up gave him a headache. I thought he didn't prefer to wear anything too different from his actual hero costume in case he was needed for an emergency. Huh, well damn. Ichigo flinched slightly when Yurichi popped up next to him on his right. He also noticed N to his left and decided he did not want to hear the mostly inappropriate comments they had about his dad. Well, Yurichi was the one who made the comments, and silently encouraged him. Nana, Saburo, please come and get them. Itsuki blinked in surprise when they did not reply. He looked behind him when he felt something move and found all the users stand second, hovering behind him with similar expressions. Unbelievable. Get back now. Aww. Yurichi pouted as Isugu imagined a metal barrier forming up in his mind to keep all the vestiges away from his consciousness. My hero costume is... Shota seemed to consider his word before deciding he didn't have enough energy after his morning heist program session. It has to be cleaned for reasons, so I cannot wear it. Translation. His hero costume was soaked in stress, sweat, and was in no condition to be worn. With that question answered, Shota moved on to taking attendance, leaving no room for anyone else to ask him questions. Alright, so from today onward until the sports festival, you will be following a different schedule. He picked up the stack of papers and distributed them amongst the students one by one. There isn't any change subject-wise, but all the academic classes have been shifted to the first half of school. From after break onwards, you will have all your heroic training classes, including electives that relate to hands-on or on-field hero work. Thank you, Isuku mumbled quietly as Shota placed two different items on his desk, a schedule and a thin booklet with a sports festival written on it. The booklet contains a list of instructions and rules you will need to follow on the day of your sports festival. Do not lose it. It is also has an itinerary at the end and the names of the faculty members you can go to in case you have any questions. He walked to the back podium and continued. In the third page, you will see the permission slip you're required to have signed by your parents or guardian. I expect it on my table by this Friday. Any later, and you won't be allowed to participate during the sports festival. He paused, letting his words settle in before asking, am I understood? Yes, Sensei. The 20 students chorused together. Good, Shota mumbled. That's all for today. You can use the rest of the period however you like, but if it gets too noisy, you will be given a pop test on any subject I feel like taking. Got it? Some of them audibly gulped and nodded. Yes, Sensei. The rest of the following two classes went by like usual. Then when the bell rang, marking the start of the elective classes, Isuku picked up his bag and rushed out of his classroom. Netsu had messaged him in between his math class about his class in a code. Like math wasn't hard enough, Isuku had to figure out the code before the end of the class. Isuku had to stare at a bunch of geometric patterns with dots for a few seconds before mind reminded him of pigpen ciphers. Maybe it was the principal's way of showing him mercy for sending a coded message in between classes. Because pigpen ciphers weren't hard to crack at all once you knew the assigned symbols. No running in the corridor, he heard Hisachi's familiar voice shout from the other end of the corridor. Itsuki slowed down, flashing an apologetic smile, and bowed to the teacher before he walked the rest of the way to the empty classroom they were going to be using. One could never expect anything when Nezu was their teacher. Unpredictably was the only thing predictable. But even then, Itsuki thought he had figured out at least a range of possibilities when it came to Nezu. Walking in a room that looked like it had been taken straight out of a scene from a spy movie with several computers and machines Itsuki didn't even know the name of, and his dad sitting in the middle of the said computers was not in the range of his predicted possibility. He was expecting something related to coding and decoding since that's what they had been going through last session. A quick glance up at him was all the acknowledgement Itsuki received from Shota before the man went back to staring at the computer screen in front of him while typing at an insanely fast speed. Ah, come on in, Midoriya-san. Itsuki turned his attention to the principal sitting on the couch with a low-level coffee table in the front. Itsuki glanced at his dad once before he walked into the room, flinching slightly when the door shut behind him automatically. Good morning, sir. Morning, Midoriya-kun. Nezu chirped, then with a paw he motioned to his dad. I hope you don't mind sharing your class with another student of mine. I have so many questions. No, wait, the sports festival. Sensei, if you don't mind, I have a few questions. Itsuki started, forehead frowning slightly in concern. The typing behind him paused abruptly as Shota stopped working and looked up to give him his attention. Yes? Oh, Itsuki blushed, realizing his small mistake. I meant Natsu-san, but I guess I can ask you as well? You can just ask the both of us, Itsuki, Shota replied easily. Right, so, about the sports festival. It's aired throughout the country, right? And all the participants' names are broadcasted, but, well, it is beneficial for those taking Limelight or Twilight Heroic as someone who wants to become an underground hero, amongst others. It's kind of counterproductive to have my name known. He looked back at his dad. How did you do it? Well, for one, my real name was aired, so no one knew about Eraserhead, and Aizawa Shota was a name no one knew from Heroics, and outside of 1D knew. Shota answered. Secondly, I limited my quirk usage during the competition, so no one could connect my quirk to my hero persona. And thirdly, no one apart from Nezu knew about my quirk, so later on, as a pro hero, it wasn't much of a problem. Plus, I laid low after the competition, so the hype from the sports festival winner dies down when the next one appears. Wait, Itsuki blinked, surprised. No one knew about your quirk? Shota shrugged. No one in the school? No. Itsuki glanced at Nezu and then back at his dad. How come? Didn't feel necessary. I wasn't exactly the picture of outgoing and friendliness back then. He paused, considering his words before he continued. Correction. I'm not exactly the picture of outgoing and friendliness. So not a lot of people approached me. If anyone did ask, I just told them my quirk affects other quirks. Plus, I wasn't planning on staying in Gen Ed. So Nezu had my files classified and locked away as pure micro request, so the Gen Ed teachers didn't know about it either. And during the competition you limited your quirk usage? Shota nodded. Yes, I only use it for short instances and only enough to throw people off. Moreover, erasure isn't a common quirk, so unless people exclusively know about it, no one knows what is happening. It's easy to cover the quirks getting suppressed as the participants mess up with their quirk usage under stress. That's incredible, Itsuki mumbled in awe. Shota shrugged like he didn't just admit to taking out 2 seconds of heroes in training and winning the sports festival without even using his full power. Being a complete ghost while being a hero is incredibly hard, especially if you're a highly competent and effective hero. Efficient hero. Nezu said, sipping his tea. You will leave your mark, intense or not. You can, however, control how much information your mark gives away. While your friends are aware of the unique multi-nature of your quirk, those present during this Woods Festival won't. You can decide which case your Limelight persona will use. Then for my underground heroic, I'll just have to use the remaining skip quirk. Exactly. Nezu nodded approvingly. Also, Jota added, the nature of your quirks are rather common. Even if you accidentally end up using the wrong skill set, you can just easily change key features of your appearance and stay incognito. However, Nezu continued, if a student truly doesn't want to take part in the competition, they can write an application for the exemption from the competition and give it to their homeroom teacher. Ichiku frowned, but are the students aware of it? It's written in the booklet I gave you, Shoto replied, although most students don't bother reading past the itinerary and permission slip. Does that answer all your questions, Midoriya-kun? Nezu asked. Yeah, thank you. His dad gave him a short nod and muttered a soft, you're welcome, before he focused back on his work. Ichiku found himself staring at him for a little while, wondering just what he was working on. However, his attention soon diverted back to the Chimera when Nezu asked if they could start their lesson, while she pushed forward a freshly prepared cup of tea. What are we going to do today? Ichiku asked, glancing back at his dad once more. Say, Midoriya-kun, how much do you know about coding? Nezu asked, placing an old-looking notebook on the table. Ichiku's eyes widened when he saw his dad's name scribbled on top of it. Oh my god, are those dad's notes? Holy shit, I need to see them. Not much, Ichiku replied, eyes glued to the spiral-bound notebook. Well, in that case, our lesson today will be learning a very popular coding language, Python, Nezu announced. He pointed to the stack of books placed in one corner of the room, all looking just as used and worn out as the notebook in front of him. And if they were all his dad's book, like Ichigo was hoping, then he might just spontaneously combust from excitement. I hope you won't mind, but I will have to set the pace for this lesson quite high in order for you to catch up to the basic required level for ethical hacking, Nezu informed, as Isugu took a seat and fished out his notebook. It's fine, Isugu replied once more, his eyes darting to his dad. He couldn't help but wonder what he was doing. The urge to take a peek or just sit next to him and see him work wouldn't leave, because he knew just by sitting next to his dad, he could learn so much. And Isugu, focus. Isugu snapped out of his daze as he heard his dad lightly scold. A mildly disapproving look was sent his way that had his cheeks burning up with embarrassment. He snapped his head around and muttered a quick sorry directed to both of them. Curiosity is natural and nothing to apologize for, Nezu said, but I will appreciate it if you give your complete attention here. Python may look easy, but it's hard if you don't properly understand the concept. Right, sorry, Ichigo muttered, clicking his mechanical open as he wrote the topic name at the top. It's quite alright, Nezu replied. Now, let's start. Alrighty, that is the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.